Before we begin the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting today, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the team that puts these upgrades together. As you can see, we have new screens to utilize, new cameras, and a whole new audio system. So again, thank you to the team that worked really hard to make that happen. I'm happy that we're able to provide a better audio and visual experience here, whether you're in council chambers, participating via Zoom, or watching online on YouTube. As with any new technology, there is a learning process here, so I just want to take a minute also to thank everyone for their patience as staff is learning these new systems. So thank you again, and I will turn it over to Chairman Fusco for Planning and Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Viviano, and good job. It looks a lot different here at the council, and I think we're a little bit intimidated, but we'll soldier through. Some of us older folks, it may take us longer on the technology piece, but we'll get through it. So with that, and thank you to everyone who's brought this, and hopefully for the constituents of people of Akron, it's gonna make life a lot easier, and they'll be able to hear us. 'Cause that was one of our biggest problems, was the audio side of things. So hopefully that's going to improve. I think it will. It already sounds good. With that, I would like to begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. And roll call, please.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Connor. Baylor.
Aye.
Mosley. Aye. All members are present except for Councilwoman Connor.
Very good. Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Hearing none, passes. With that, we do have one item that's up for a public hearing this afternoon. The process is that we will receive a report from the planning department in terms of the proposed conditional use, after which we'll ask anyone who wishes to testify before the committee to be sworn in by our clerk, Ms. Viviano. And after that, we'll open up the public hearing portion, ask for comments, and then we'll close the public hearing portion, and we'll open up to questions from the committee. We will then open up to questions to council. We'll repeat that process this evening at 7 o'clock. The only major difference is the committee will then make a recommendation to all of council, either in favor, against, or to table an item, take time on the conditional use request. I hope I got that right. It's been a while since we've been here. So with that, the first item is the ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish an apartment use at 133 Merriman Road. Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Mike Antonucci, member of the planning staff. Temple Hall Revival Group LLC is requesting to subdivide portions of the approximately 46,000 square foot building to provide studio apartments for artists and residency renters. The Temple Hall Revival Group refers to the site as the Highland Universal Gathering Event Place. Their mission is to educate and entertain through the redevelopment of the building as a creative arts collaborative center. Conditional use approval for the HUG, or Huge Event Place, was passed by Akron City Council in November 2022. Existing classroom spaces in the building are to be converted into 13 studio apartments with full bathrooms and appliances ranging in size from 400 to 1,100 square feet. The apartments will cater directly to artists that can take up residency while they collaborate with their peers, professionals, and students. New double insulated low E-glass windows are to be installed in the apartments along the north and east elevations of the building to not only provide energy efficiency but minimize the ambient light and sound from the apartment units. Window shades and coverings will further reduce light transmission from the building. A parking lot situated to the north provides parking for 20 vehicles, with individuals being able to access the building from a side entrance. A driveway along the southern building elevation provides access to the event center on the low level. 60 additional parking spaces are located across Merriman Road. Lighting in the parking area has been converted to a low-level LED lighting so as not to shine into residential areas. Petitioner is also proposing a minimum 10-foot solid fence along the back property line that will extend northwest from the building to screen it from residences along Weber Avenue. The addition of apartment dwellings to the event place fulfills the goal of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan by promoting a variety of housing types and price ranges to meet the requirements and desires of the city's population. The historic structure had been vacant for several years, yet it is large enough and well suited for an adaptive reuse that includes the proposed residential studio apartments along with the approved event center and banquet hall. Artist in residence studios will allow this to become a mixed-use facility specializing in promotion of the arts. It will complement the Highland Square neighborhood and many other cultural institutions and venues within the area. The reuse of the site allows for a formerly vacant building to continue to provide opportunities for people in the arts and celebrations for people within the greater Akron area. In addition, the redevelopment of the site as mixed use will provide a diversity of income streams to assure financial sustainability for the property, and planning staff and planning commission recommend approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, we'll ask our clerk to please swear in any individuals who may be here to testify on this particular item. Ms. Biviano?
Yes, I know that the petitioner signed up to participate via Zoom. Mr. Tropy, can you hear me? Are you able to unmute so that I can swear you in? I'm going to send a prompt to your screen. It's going to ask you to unmute.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Thank you. If you or anyone in the audience would like to participate in this public hearing, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask if the petitioner would like to provide any comments in reference to this proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here to share good ideas and to continue the process of approval. I'm looking forward to an expedited, favorable review. I've taken time to meet with the neighbors, and I believe that we have a clear understanding of what it's going to take to remediate or address their concerns. And if I itemize those now, those are some of the most recent items that we've discussed with both Teresa Byerly and the Teresa, I forget her last name, and her husband to the south. The first thing that had been brought to my attention was the concern about the privacy, and we are committed to building a fence the length of her property to the due east. It wasn't clear whether 6 or 10 feet was going to be the amount, because at a certain point, it'd either be 6 or 20 feet in order to achieve all the objectives. So I'm still looking at how that best gets positioned in there aesthetically. But we are committed to a perimeter privacy screening. The concern about the noise is an understandable one. We are putting in some very high efficient double insulated glass that will be operable, but has just the minimal amount for fire and egress and natural ventilation. Those improvements will be installed just as soon as we complete this approval process. The idea of the light transference, we are going to be installing a uniform blinds and draperies that will be light cancellation. So that will really help in deadening any sound, but will certainly address the privacy issues and giving us a cohesive aesthetic around the entire perimeter of the building. The other concern was just the hours of operation, that this will be a residential dwelling primarily on the perimeter. There's a small correction. There's a total of 14 units. We'll be adding another 13. There is an existing unit there that has been residential since the beginning that the building had been established for an on-site manager. And then we're looking at the hours of operation to be, there'll be no events that will carry on past 11 inside the building. And on the outside, where we have built a little gathering spot and an outdoor chapel that'll be constructed, all those events will stop no later than 10 o'clock. So I believe that we're addressing the lighting. It'll be downward lighting. Right now we have bright security lights because we've had a couple of incidents there. with some theft because the building's not occupied on the upper levels. So that situation will be remedied here with a downward low cast lighting, but once we start taking additional occupants in the building. So our hope is that we can get this approval process expedited, because I am working to try to get to a year-end completion here so that we can preserve our historic tax credits. I believe we addressed the lighting, the noise, the hours of operation, and I really enjoyed meeting with the neighbors there to explain our vision for the arts expansion, and what way that I feel that this will just add to the value of the area by creating a walkable amenity for all the artists and art lovers in Highland Square. So I hope you can take these remedial actions that we're trying to do to address the concerns. And I look forward to the completion of an excellent project that I know will be consistent with the other good works that we've done historically across the community. I'm Tony Tropy. I'll be your host today and every day, Lord willing.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. If there's anyone here that wishes to make comments, if you could please provide for us your name and address. Thank you very much.
If you could press that button. The red light will turn on.
How's that?
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
is this part of the new system also?
Yes.
Nice.
We're all learning.
Okay, so my name is Dr. Teresa Byerly. I live at 662 Weber Avenue. And I want to say to Tony, thanks. I really appreciate your comments and, referencing our conversation. I don't know if you could see me, but I think maybe we're right across from each other. Okay. But I am still going, I have a prepared statement, and it's just something I'm going to read, and I can give you a printed copy if you need it, but I need this to be on the record because I am cautious about everything going forward. I have been a resident of Akron for 43 years. 2 of my 4 degrees are from the University of Akron. I graduated from Leadership Akron in 2001, and most of my work was community engagement work. I've worked for the University of Akron and a number of local nonprofits. I have done thousands of hours of volunteer work in Akron, and I have donated thousands of dollars to nonprofits in our community. I love Akron. I love Highland Square. I absolutely love it. I am not against development at all. I've owned my house for 33 years. My backyard abuts the temple. 8 of the proposed apartments are within the scope of my property up on the building. That's why I'm concerned about this. 8 apartments are going within 70 feet of my back door. Since the Temple property was purchased in December of 2021, I've been concerned about the impact of the proposed use on our neighborhood. My neighborhood, Weber Avenue, is so quiet, it's peaceful, it's stable. Summer evenings you hear the crickets, the children, the peepers, the dogs, no loud music, very few loud cars, no disturbances. Rare maybe for Highland Square, but it's true. It's very hidden. Most people don't even know it's there. Most of the residents on my block have owned their homes for 30 years, some for many more, some for fewer. And it's about 6 of us are directly abutting the Temple property, and all of us are downhill from the Temple. All right, so my concerns are, since the ownership of the Temple property transferred 20 months ago, there has been no formal communication. 20 months about what's going on with the new owners or the proposed use. Signs were erected without proper approval. Construction work has been done without permits. Ultra-bright lights have disrupted our yards and living rooms. A resident moved into the building without proper zoning approval. And recently, a neighbor's property was excavated without permission. Oh, and there's also some used condoms hanging off the back fence. But at least they used condoms. Despite the bright security lights. I've attended every meeting that's been announced and voiced my concerns, and I've heard a lot of city leaders say, we told Tony he should meet with the neighbors to bring everybody on board with his vision. He just called me last week. September 8th, we met. And again, I appreciate it, I do. But we're talking 20 months that I've had to listen to, whether it's the construction or watch what's going on, and experience the anxiety with my neighbors of not knowing what's going on, but at the same time knowing we're not following the rules. So based on a history of really lax code enforcement in Akron, I'm really apprehensive. That's why I'm here, to just tell you that. I know you're going to pass this. I know it's going to move forward. I'm not completely opposed to it, but there is something wrong when some people have to follow the rules and others don't. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming down. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify, reference the proposal at 133 Merriman Road? Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open up to any committee members who may have questions at this point. Any committee members? Okay, not seeing any. Any council members have any questions? Any council members? Oh, Nancy Holland, I see your hand is up. You're the representative for the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco, and thank you, Dr. Byerly, and thank you, Tony Tropey. I believe that finally, after a lot of sort of starts and stops, the necessary conversation happened last week. And I think that these active, engaged, caring citizens, both Tony and Teresa, have found some agreement on some key points. I think they need to be made conditions. I don't think that we can, just proceed on without getting these made part of the ordinance. It strikes me that there's and I'm just going off notes from both Tony and from an email I received from him at 12:58 today, and from an email this morning from Teresa as well. Need to figure out whether it's going to be a 6-foot or 10-foot fence on that eastern edge. Also, I think there needs to be some harmony about the hours of outdoor events. I would also ask that there be some conversation between the zoning director and Tony regarding the construction of a chapel, and whether that is within the scope of the previously passed conditional use and this current one. I think that conversation and collaboration always carries the day. I think that HUG is a super asset. It adds value to our community and to our neighborhood. And working through these issues that bear on the statutorily recognized concerns of the nearby neighbors, it's the right thing to do. And I think it can be done quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Linda Mobian. I see your hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I ditto everything that's been said by Councilwoman Holland. I guess my real concern is listening to the resident who stated that, the rules that we always try to enforce, that we need to make sure that not only that particular resident, but all of the residents that are impacted by this and those that are not directly impacted are part of a conversation. And I don't know if the conversation was had by all of these people that are impacted or just by the few residents. I just want to make sure that people know what's happening in their backyard and that we are talking to them and answering their questions and concerns. And she's raised a number of things that would give me reason to pause. And I'm assuming the committee is going to defer or take time on this until those meetings or that meeting can be had. With that, I have those concerns and questions. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make any comments, questions? Okay, very good with that. I do have a quick question, be it for petitioner or for Mr. Antonucci. I know typically we get we can make 6 foot or 10 foot in terms of size, but I'm just curious, more than anything, do we talk about the material? Typically, I know these are aluminum or metal, but I'm wondering if wood would be more of a noise canceling type of construction or not. I don't know, to be honest with you. Just curious about that.
Right, well, the idea would be it would be a solid fence. So
Yeah,
I know what we've been
right.
seeing lately is it's either wood. Now, people are moving more toward the vinyl. You know?
Exactly right. Thank you.
And honestly, I don't know which is more sound canceling, the wood or the vinyl. There's a board-on-board wood, you know, that is a little thicker than a vinyl fence would be.
Right. I would guess they wouldn't bounce as much, but I'm not.
But again, I don't know that it may be a different material altogether. As
Okay.
long as it's for us generally a solid, you know, fence as opposed to chain link or something like that.
Absolutely.
Would be suitable.
Correct. Yeah, solid. No question. Okay, very good. Nancy Holland, I see your hands back up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a kind of a follow-along question for Mr. Antonucci. When we include conditions in a conditional use, can we put, I guess, a deadline by which time a fence would be constructed? Is that something within the scope?
Yes, so generally what happens is when there's a requirement or a condition for fencing or landscaping, there can be a performance bond placed on the conditional use. And the performance bond generally, how we do that is we generally go with 3 growing seasons if there's like landscaping involved. But we could make it shorter as a condition too. But yes, there's a performance bond that the petitioner would post a certain amount of money, either through surety, a letter of credit from a bank, or a cash bond, and along with an approved plan. And once all that work is completed, then we can go ahead and release the bond. But there is a time limit on that bond as well. That's pretty standard.
Okay, thank you. And do we have instances of other outdoor activity places having conditions placed that would regulate the hours of operation in terms of noise and traffic concerns?
Yeah, that's a pretty standard condition on a lot of conditional uses. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Malik?
So we are not leaning into it. So just, I guess, a question for Mr. Antonucci, following on Councilwoman Holland's question. Could we possibly, in an instance in which there's been some concerns about, the process being followed properly, have, some kind of requirement of an inspection that the conditions are being met prior to the zoning going into effect and force?
So a lot of what's happening there is sort of outside my realm of expertise, because a lot of it is dealing with building code requirements. Some activity, if it's just taking out carpeting or something like that inside a building, is not going to require a building permit. So a lot of what happens in a situation like this is without having an building inspector going in and checking to see what's going on. Like from my viewpoint, it's hard for me to know what is going on in a building that needs permits and doesn't. I do know in Mr. Tropy's case, he has applied for permits through the county for the apartment build out, and has recently applied for the grading just last week through plans and permits for the outdoor area. So that part is moving on. There were some trees taken out and there was some grading going on, probably that shouldn't have been going on earlier, but now those permits are in process. We can't sign off on the apartment part until the conditional use is granted. So he's not going to be able to get that permit until everything's approved through this process. But yeah, sometimes it's a moving target, unfortunately.
No, I appreciate that, and that's really helpful. I guess, it's maybe just a suggestion that, we just make crystal clear that, no one can be living in there under the new zoning until these conditions, particularly the fence, are in place, so that it's clear to everyone. And, I just parenthetically, I think it's a really exciting proposal. It's a beautiful historic structure, and I'm really excited about what it's going to look like. But from a process standpoint, just want to make sure that we're not getting out ahead of ourselves in terms of doing it in terms of the speed of the process.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So therefore, we'd like to invite both the petitioner, and if you'd like to come back this evening, at 7 o'clock, we'll have an additional public hearing. After that public hearing, the committee will make a recommendation to all of council, either in favor, against, or to take time to table an item. So thank you both for being here. Certainly appreciate it. We're now going to move on to the balance of our agenda, of which, and that'll be at 7 o'clock this evening.
Thank you, council
I'm going
members.
to recommend that we take time on the agenda, on the regular list of legislation, and we move into the new list of legislation, of which the first item is known as item number 5 on our list. Ms. Viviano? If you please read those in for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Excuse me, am I still connected?
Yes, ma'am, we're just having an issue with audio.
Okay, thank you.
Test.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I'm glad I gave that disclaimer that we are all still learning this system. So looks like we are good to go. You can continue. Thank you.
Okay, very good. I believe we're okay, and it was on the record for item number 5. We'll begin again, though, with 6, being ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 677 Cuyahoga Street. I see advertising for a public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it. 7, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to place an oversized pole sign at 725 South Canton Road. Advertised for public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, I see a hand up. Ms. Amobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious what happened with issue ordinance 5.
Advertised for a public hearing.
Oh, you did say that. I didn't hear it. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, very good. I believe we're on item number 8, authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized garage at 1203 Sawyer Avenue. Advertised for public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it. 9, authorizing a conditional use to retain a 2-family dwelling at 2447 Newton Street. That's also up for a public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Okay. 10, ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a solid fence beyond the building line at 1558 Hampton Road. I assume we're going to be advertising for that as well for a public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it. Very good. And with that, with nothing else, we will adjourn the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. Thank you. Got through it.
Our next committee today will be the Public Service Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Those committee members are Mosley, Kamer, Holland, Lombardo, and McKittrick. Again, that's the Public Service Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
and it goes red.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Mosley, Kamer, Holland, Lombardo, and McKittrick. You do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. If I could call public service to order and get approval of our previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Ayes have it. We have two pieces coming before us. The first one is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept and to expend grant funding from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Intervention Grant and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of committee. This grant that we received was something that our HR department and our grants manager, Tessa, who's sitting out there, applied for us. She met with Scott Robinette, who's our superintendent of motor equipment, and they applied for this grant. We purchased a Miller filter capture fume extractor, and what that is, it's a portable machine that they roll right up to when they're welding and cutting, and this thing creates a negative pressure around that work area, which draws all those fumes. It goes through a filtration system and then expels that out. So the employee is not standing over there as he's welding or cutting, or she is welding or cutting. So the price on this was $17,000. Our grant was for $13,000. So the difference is $4,300, as you see in the legislation, and we'll be paying that out of the budget. But this was something I want to thank them for doing, and obviously the employees will definitely appreciate it. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Little, I just want to say thank you. You know, the industriousness of pursuing grant funding to take care of this, and you know, just the vigilance while legally required, you know, going the extra distance to make sure that our employees are safe. You know, these are our core values to those of us in the city of Akron. So thanks for all who were involved in securing this funding, and I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from committee or council members? Seeing none, can I get a motion for suspension of the rules?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Our next piece is an ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service. Let me reread that. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service, that's a typo. I thought it was just me. To enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids, requesting and receiving requests for proposals, RFPs, requesting and receiving quotes and/or self-performing work for construction of Firestone Stadium, batting cages, and bullpens, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Luttle?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of committee. We actually had this project in the capital budget this year. We would like to get it done by the end of the year. We did receive state pricing from the company that's going to supply the batting cages. The self-perform part of this to save money is our highway maintenance personnel are actually going to pour the concrete pads that these batting cages and bullpens will sit on or be placed on. So, as you know, now that we've got turf throughout that stadium, we didn't feel it was. It wouldn't have been very responsible to plant grass where these cages are. So we are going to actually pour concrete. The cages will slip in like a post and a sleeve type of thing. This was something that not only Ohio High School requested last year, can we get bullpens for the warm-up pitchers or batting cages, but also most of you probably know that we are bringing the MAC tournament. That will be back this spring or in May. And we also requested or received a request, and we won the bid to hold the GMAC, which is a smaller division college tournament this May. So we will rent these out to non-city teams when they're playing down there. So we will generate a little bit of revenue to upkeep the maintenance on these bullpens and batting cages.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Little, you partially addressed this, but perhaps for the benefit of those who are watching from home or work, if you could elaborate on the city's relationship with the stadium to help folks understand why this is a positive investment.
Well, back, I believe it was 2008, I mean, Councilman Kamer might remember, we bid and we are now holding the girls' state championships here in Akron. And it was a 5-year agreement, then it was a renewal, and then another 5-year agreement. So this is probably the third extension, and they are very happy to be in Akron. Our staff does a fantastic job. They love the location for all the teams traveling into Akron. And obviously, before we did the turf last year, we did contact them, and they were very supportive because of the inclement weather that we have and just being able to play those games down there without interruption. I mean, absent of lightning, they play, okay? So it's been a true benefit for the city of Akron, and it's been a true embracement by the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council or committee members? I'm seeing none. I'm sure consent is fine, but I'll
Consent's
make a
fine.
motion
I
for
mean,
suspension of rules.
Either one, yeah.
Can I receive a motion for suspension of rules?
So moved.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We have nothing else coming before us, and we are adjourned.
Our next committee today will be the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick, and that will begin at 2:15. Again, that's the Public Safety Committee, and it will begin at 2:15.
Did it come to you?
Well, I'm just doing that right now. I said, Michelle's like, it's not here. North Akron CDC.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. All committee members are present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'd like to call the public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present, and we do have meeting minutes to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We have 3 new pieces in front of us today. Our first piece is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee without the formality of publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts with Fusus to amend the current contract for additional year from July 15th, 2023 to July 14th, 2024 and declare an emergency. And I do see we have our Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Clarence Tucker, with us.
Yes, actually. Good afternoon. How you doing?
Good.
How you doing? Good.
This is just a continuation of a program that we already have in place, and it's something that it has been working very well for Akron Police, and we'd like to continue using it.
All right. Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Captain McCosey? You good? Okay.
I'm here to answer questions, sir. If anybody has any, I'll be happy to.
All right. Thank you. Committee members, any questions or comments? We got Councilman Malik.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor and Captain. Just to be clear, are all the cameras that were slated to be installed?
Captain?
So I think this is, to be clear, this is for the South Campus area around the
Yes.
University of Akron. It's where the cameras are, I think you're referring to, and yes, those were all installed. These are different, separate from the flock system.
Okay.
These are actual cameras that show video footage,
Okay.
if you will, and this platform allows us to bring all those together. So it links those cameras as well as any other milestone cameras and the other cameras that the city owns. We're able to bring those all into one.
Okay.
In one
And
system.
the total number of cameras?
But I can be honest with you, I just asked Craig Stanley at Summit County for an update on this, and I have not received that, but I will share that information once I do have that.
Okay. And then the last question, is UAPD able to access these as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so it's kind of a joint access. All right, thank you so much. I know it was a big collaboration with the county as well, so appreciate all the work that's gone into it.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. Anything else, council members? I do got one question. If any of these cameras go down or aren't working, are we pretty on it pretty quick, or we get notified if they're not working or
We
something?
know when they're not working, and those are fixed very quickly. Obviously, it varies depending on the problem that they're having, but they are fixed very quickly. This system, particularly the one that we're talking about, is the software platform that brings them all together, but the cameras are working brilliantly.
Okay, good, cool. All right, thanks. What's your pleasure on this? Oh, hold on. I got Councilwoman Howland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Captain. I just have one question about Fusus as it's being used right now. Have we had cameras hosted by non-public entities, private sector operations actually join the platform?
We have had interest in doing that. I believe we do have 1 or 2 of the private companies here in Akron that are doing it. Our bigger one was trying to get on board with APS and a couple of the other non-Akron government entities so we can really have a good awareness, situational awareness, when we can respond to those incidents there. So we have had some success with APS now, and we are working, I believe, on the 2nd or 3rd private company that's going along with it.
Very good. Thank you.
And just to add to that, we've had extensive conversations with a lot of the business owners, commerce along the zip strip, where this is really being targeted, to talk about the program, the benefits of the program as we work the kinks out of the program, to really go and ask them, hey, do you want to be a part of this? Those are ongoing conversations. I know we're doing it. The University of Akron has some outreach. I know Kerry Jackson, very specifically with university, has been doing a lot of this. So it is going to continue and grow, we hope. So we will definitely keep you apprised.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anything else? Councilman Malik.
Is there kind of any evaluation process built in that we can kind of see what the results of the cameras are?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question?
Sure. Is there any kind of evaluation process that we're looking at, kind of what benefit we're getting out of the cameras?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. We actually had a review of it over the summer with Fusus in particular to make sure this system is doing what we want it to do and in a way that we want it to do it. That's the product or this is legislation is a product of that. We did negotiate a lower fee because at the outset we were having difficulty getting all the connections up and running and problems with the blocks. We believe now we have that all resolved, so that we are saving some money a little bit on this contract. This will get us through another year, and then we'll reevaluate again and determine whether or not this is still the system we want or whether it's a different system that we need to go with.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything else? All right. What was your pleasure on this one? What are you thinking?
We do ask for suspension on the rules. We'd like to get the bill paid.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor of suspension of the rules? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. We'll present that this evening. Our next piece, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the state's body armor grant program and declare an emergency. I turn it
Yes.
over to you.
Captain McCosey, go ahead.
This is part of the AG's office body armor grant program. We began with them in 2019, and the state provides us with an allocation of funds. We did not expend all those funds as a part of that program, and so we still have this amount of $10,029 and change left. We'd like to accept that $10,029, and that'll defray the cost of us replacing body armor this year for some of our officers.
All right.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is for body armor that we already possess. It's just a reimbursement?
It's for body armor that we made the purchase during this grant period, which
Yes.
I believe started September 1st of last year, and then it moves through the end of September of this year.
So we're not adding additional?
It's not additional
Not
spending.
additional, okay.
no.
Good, good. All right, questions or comments? Committee members? Council members? All right. Go ahead.
Motion to approve with suspension of the rules.
Second.
All right, all in favor of suspension of the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, we'll present that this evening. That's two pieces done. We have one more left. Thank you for coming down today. I appreciate it. Ordinance authorizing the director of law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality, publicly advertising for bids with victim assistance to provide services for the city pertaining to the victims of crimes and declare an emergency. And we have our Chief of Staff, Gert Whelms, and our Chief Prosecutor, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard on this. This is a renewal contract. The city of Akron, unlike Summit County, we do not hire our own victim advocates. We have a relationship with victims assistance. At one point, I worked with the Battered Women's Shelter doing this kind of work. So we have always helped in this capacity, just using outside agencies to fill these obligations. And Craig can talk to about some of the changes with victims' rights and Marcy's Law and how we pretty much have an obligation to do this kind of work and making sure we're doing it, how we're doing it, but those community partners really allow us to make sure we are doing everything we need to, not only with municipal court, but the victim advocates even go out on death notifications in the community. So it is full service, 24/7 that we have with the relationship with victims assistance.
Sure, and members of council, I can just tailor onto that. We have an advocate that's embedded in our office. Much like I have a courtroom, a prosecutor assigned to each judge, they have an advocate assigned to each judge, plus an additional advocate for what we call our arraignment court. That arraignment court goes 6 days a week, including Saturdays. They have an advocate that comes in and really helps with just the high volume of the initial arrest from the night before, and helps be the conduit between law enforcement and our office, and helps with providing services and information for resources for our survivors. We just had this morning, we had a young survivor in crisis, and we had our victims assistance advocate, and along with my domestic violence prosecutor, and definitely helped work this young woman through a lot that she was going on. So they absolutely fill a critical gap for us in helping with our survivors. And I'm happy to answer any questions relating to our work with them.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions or comments? Councilwoman Mosley?
Thank you. Not really a comment, just question. With the passing of Marcus Miller, are you guys replacing him, or was Marcus?
Today, we were absolutely, yes. Thank you for asking. Marcus was a wonderful member of our office for a number of years. His passing will be, he just genuinely wanted to help everybody he came in contact with. So we're very fortunate. Oriana House, retired officer Dave Presley with the Akron Police Department has joined our office. So that fills up our domestic violence unit, which, as I was joking with Ms. Whelms, we're staffed in a way we haven't been in a number of years. But again, fortunately, a lot of what we've been able to put back into place is these components that play a critical role to sort of the very front end of the transaction when survivors and victims are coming in and they're looking for information. Not only do our domestic violence investigators help with that, but our victims assistance advocates definitely help with that as well. So they've been a tremendous help.
And then final question is, with the move to Ocasek, will you all have space for the victim assistance advocates in the new building?
That is enough. I love questions where I have the answers for them. The answer is yes. As I mentioned, we do have one advocate that's embedded in our office, and we're going to be in a position to keep that. Unfortunately, their office is now very close to the building. There'll be a little, but I met with their administration a couple months ago to discuss that, whether that was something they wanted because of the location being changed. And absolutely, they do. They love the partnership, and we're happy to have them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other committee members? I do see Councilwoman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, on behalf of many legal clients of mine, friends and neighbors, and folks residing in Ward 1 who I've had occasion to communicate with in my capacity as a council member, I just want to say thank you to the city law department, and to victims assistance for assuring that these services continue to be available. I really can't think of an organization or a service that surpasses victims assistance in terms of allowing for healing and for strengthening of a significant part of our city, which is the part that often goes unrecognized and unmentioned. And thank you for bringing this forward. I know I speak for Ward 1 in saying that this is not only a good investment, this is an essential one. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, what's your pleasure? What are you thinking?
Consent.
Consent? All right. Motion for consent?
So moved.
Second. All right. All in favor for consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming down. Thank you for your hard work. Nothing come before us. We're adjourned. Great.
next committee of the day is the Public Utilities and Green Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, McKittrick, Connor, Mosley, and Holland. Councilman Freeman is absent today, so Councilman McKittrick will be chairing. We'll just get started here in a few moments when we have a quorum. Thank you. We do have a quorum now whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I would go ahead and call the committee to order. Could I have a motion to accept the previous meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have three pieces. Number 13 is the first one. It's authorizing the mayor or his designee to file an application for, and if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the U.S. EPA's Office of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund for award option number 3 and declaring an emergency. Who's going to be speaking on this? Ms. Collins?
Thank you, Chairman. The Solar for All grant is something that the U.S. EPA has made $7 billion in funding available for as part of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Akron is planning to seek funds from this opportunity in 2 different ways. First, supporting the state's effort to establish a sustainable long-term revolving loan fund to subsidize solar and spur economic development in disadvantaged communities. And the second way that Akron plans to participate is by an application with a coalition of cities that are calling themselves the Heartland Industrial Cities Coalition of Local Governments. And this coalition is formed because of the common population challenges, market barriers, and opportunities to each of these cities. The request for your consideration of legislation today relates to the Heartland Industrial Cities Coalition application. It's led by Growth Opportunity Partners, which is a green bank out of Cleveland that specializes in capital for solar development in lower income communities. Akron would be one of 30 local governments participating in the coalition application. And we anticipate that a combination of solar opportunities, potentially including a low to moderate income co-op for purchasing and installation of solar, a low to moderate income solar and battery installation program, or, and it could be an and, so an and or, community solar, depending on what happens with state legislation on community solar. And that could serve up to 3,000 disadvantaged households in Akron. The legislation says it's most likely that we'd serve 1,000, but it could be up to 3,000. There's no match for this grant. The due date's October 12th of 2023, and we're happy to have this legislation considered as part of the consent agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions from any committee members? Ms. Holland? Nancy Holland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Collins, thank you for finding this and pursuing this. It's a real winner, and it may be premature to ask you to respond to something like this, but when we say low to moderate income or disadvantaged households, do we yet have any kind of a guidance on what we're talking about here? Would this be qualified census tract determined or income determined? Any idea?
Yes, Councilwoman Holland. It is determined in several different ways. One that I tend to look to when looking at many of the grants available with the Infrastructure and Inflation Reduction Act funding is called the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. The White House puts that out, and I tend to say that over 60% of Akron qualifies based on that tool, but and that's kind of geographic area. You know, it's literally 60% of Akron's area. But if you consider population, it's about 70%. So that's one of the ways. There are other ways that EPA is allowing us to think about qualifications. And we have not come down on a particular way of, you know, narrowing the field. But we'll need to do that. 3,000 households is certainly not the number of households that could potentially qualify. So we will be leaning on the coalition to see how each city is doing it, and we'll determine how to go about qualifications, you know, assuming that we actually get the grant. So there are multiple ways that are available, but we have not landed on a particular way.
Very good. Thanks for the response. This is tremendously exciting. Good news. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anybody else have? Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you. Just briefly, on the, I know you mentioned that there's $7 billion available in funding. Is there a reason why we're only going after 400,000, or is it based off of population? If you could explain that a little more.
Yeah, so Councilwoman Mosley, there are a limited number of grants available. And with the coalition approach, it's only, they're saying up to 10 for award option 3 grants are available, and this is a coalition of 30 cities. So you can imagine with a maximum award of $400 million for each coalition application, we have to narrow the field. Now, with award option 1, which I had mentioned earlier, as the state is trying to produce a sustainable, long-term revolving loan fund, we may be able to seek additional funding. Okay. But for the grant, it would be limited.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Any other council members? Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Just briefly, you know, you mentioned that there are a number of other communities involved in the coalition. Are they mostly in Ohio? Are they all across the Midwest? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So they are across the Midwest. Heartland Industrial Cities refers to essentially Rust Belt cities, but we're trying to make it a better term. But the city of Akron, of course, is one of, I think I said 30, and the legislation says 31. It's been narrowed to 30 at this stage. Communities in New York, communities in Indiana, communities in West Virginia and Missouri, Kansas are all included in this application, and the common factors really have to do with population, access to the market, and things of that nature. So I think I provided a full list of the communities in the UCR, and I'm happy to share it with you all.
Thank you so much. It's really cool to see that.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Mobian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Collins. As I look at this, I'm curious as to, would you have to contract with companies, or individuals can hire their own person if they were, I know we're ahead of the game, but I just trust and believe that we're going to get this money. If individual homeowners wanted to apply for this money, could they hire their own contractor, or would we have to contract with companies that could handle this kind of work?
That's a good question. We are able to utilize the funding in a way that allows each household to come up with their own contractor who they'd like to use, but it just depends on the mechanism we're using. So if it's community solar refers to a program where it'd be a solar array in one place that would serve multiple households, not necessarily rooftop solar. So it kind of depends on which way we go with the solar installation itself. But yes, I believe it's correct that it could be a combination of the city contracting with an entity to do the installation, especially if it was community solar, or residents themselves deciding who to choose.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions? Ms. Collins, what's your pleasure on this?
So there's no rush on this one. It's due October 12th. So consent agenda is fine with us.
Okay. Could I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Number 14 is our next piece. And this is authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into a joint funding agreement with the United States Department of the Interior for the operation and maintenance of flow measurement gauges and the collection of stream flow data for the period October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2026, authorizing payment for the same and declaring an emergency. Mr. Luddle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of committee. Yes, this is a 3-year agreement that we are required to do. We work with ODNR to submit these annual reports, and this is part of our diversion of flow and stream. So anything that we pump over the divide or bring back over the divide, ODNR measures that at Lock 1 and also at Long Lake. They have control devices where they can either send flow to the Great Lakes Basin or they send it to the Ohio River Basin. So this is something we do every 3 years. I believe you did get the update on the UCR. It wasn't in there earlier, but you did receive it. It's around $60,000 a year in the funding source. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions by committee members? Council members? What's your
Consent's
pleasure,
fine.
sir? Okay. Got to get a motion for consent, please.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Number 15. Authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Division of Forestry, to apply to and accept the ODNR Urban Canopy Restoration Grant and declaring an emergency. Mr. Luddle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This grant's for $25,000, and we have a $25,000 match. What we had we submitted in the capital budget that we very successfully received this grant through the ODNR, like you said, Urban Canopy Restoration. So what are we going to do with this? We're going to plant 71 additional trees with this funds. This will add to the 500 that we are going to plant in our regular program this fall. We are going to target these trees, and a large portion of the 500 of these trees in the district that's tributary to the OSIT tunnel. As you know, that we are trying to eliminate the HRT, so these street trees that will be planted in that area will help further reduce the stormwater going into that district. One other thing that I'd like to mention, we also are partnering with Akron General Cleveland Clinic. They're providing volunteers and they're paying for the trees. We're going to plant an additional 50 trees in the Summit Lake neighborhood this fall with their volunteer program. So it just further goes to our urban canopy. Emily's been a big help with this. John Mellish obviously has been pushing forward with this to try to get our target of 40%. Obviously, we're only at 34, but we're so far ahead of most other cities in Ohio at this point. So with that, I will take any questions.
Any questions by any committee members? Any other council members? What's your pleasure, Mr. Luddle?
Consent's fine.
Okay, could I get a motion for consent, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. We have nothing else to come before us. We will be adjourned.
Our next committee of the day is the Budget and Finance Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, Amobian, Malik, Baylor, and Lombardo. Councilman Freeman is absent today, so Councilwoman Amobian will be chairing. I also want to make a note for the committee that item number 4 has been pulled by the sponsor. Whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All committee members are present except Mr. Freeman, is that correct?
That's right.
That is correct.
Okay. May I have a motion to accept the minutes from our last meeting, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Minutes are approved. The first item we have on the agenda is item number 1, requesting that the Summit County Fiscal Officer make an advance payment of tax funds for tax year 2023, payable in 2024 to the City of Akron Treasury Division and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a piece that we bring annually. When the county collects the property tax, they typically give us 3 separate disbursements, each half of the tax. And the state started requiring about 10 to 12 years ago that each city that wants to get their funds dispersed in advance of the final settlement pass a resolution stating that they would like to have the funds advanced. So as I said, this is an annual piece that we bring. It just allows us to get some of the property tax collections a little bit earlier.
And it helps with tax cash flow as well. Are there any questions? May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Was the motion to suspend the rules?
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Thank you. Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? The motion passes. The second item I have is an ordinance accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission of Summit County and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the Summit County Fiscal Officer and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the ordinance that is levying the inside millage property tax collection for the city of Akron. So once again, we are levying 10.5 mils of tax. That is the charter limit, so we are at the maximum amount that we can levy. Typically, this tax collects about $32 million a year, although I would note that the amounts that we are seeing on the legislation, which show that $32 million, do not reflect the anticipated increase in the assessed valuation that we should see next year. So we do not have the final amount from the county yet. We expect to receive that sometime in November. So the amount that we collect next year should be more than what you are seeing on this legislation.
Very good. Other questions from committee? I can't see, Madam Clerk. Do you see anybody?
I don't see any hands raised here in chambers.
Any questions from non-committee members? Okay. May I have a motion? Do we need to suspend the rules?
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstentions? Motion passes. The third item we have is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Voris, Sater, Seymour, Peace, LLP for the provision of professional legal services for the city of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this is an ordinance for a contractual agreement with Voice for a variety of legal matters. I'll let Brian Angeloni from the Law Department kind of speak to a little bit about the contract.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So before you is a professional services contract with Voorhees, who acts as outside legal counsel, one of our outside legal counsel to the city. Essentially what we have here is an extension of existing agreements for additional monies. And primarily what this is aimed at are employment, labor, and benefits matters, I will say, a wide variety of those types of matters. So the biggest portion of that money would be utilized for that sort of stuff. Also, there's some general litigation costs in there as well. So that's what the contract basically represents.
Mm-hmm. And it's basically civil litigation, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I called earlier today, and I know you were not available. How long have we had this contract?
So what I would say is it's a variety of contracts. It's not just one. So we would enter into essentially separate engagement, and this is common with what we would do with any other firm. We would enter into separate engagements depending on what they're representing us for. Sometimes we do a broader general engagement, but so you're not just talking about one contract. That being said, labor employment piece of this, I would imagine at least for a couple, if not several years, could be longer. I don't know. So I am speculating a bit on that.
Sure.
Litigation, I think the city has utilized this firm. You know, again, I wouldn't know the exact number, but I can imagine it's probably decades at this point.
And the reason I'm asking is that it would be nice to know as we re-enter contracts with firms, so we have some type of sunset to open it up for other firms to bid on work with us. I know it's nice to have somebody that you dealt with for years and years and years who have a history with you, but it kind of closes the door for other firms to bid on some work. And I'm just curious about that.
Well, and I would say, Madam Chair, that generally speaking with professional service arrangements, they're kind of unique creatures in the sense that you're really utilizing particular firms or particular lawyers that you know or understand have particular skill sets or have an expertise in a certain area of law. So it's not like a typical bidding contract arrangement. You really need to rely on your lawyers and know who you're dealing with and know that they have the expertise to win the day for the city. So that's, I would just caution you on that front. It is a very particularized, nuanced thing.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, and I don't discount that at all. I know when you have historical knowledge and you work with somebody who's done well by the city, but we also have to look at when do we allow new thinking and new firms to consider our business and approach things from a different perspective. I mean, that could be another day, but I just want us to keep that in mind that at some point we hopefully will be open to that kind of thinking. Are there other questions from committee or other members of the council?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure if you can see, I have a Councilman Malik here in chambers, Councilman Lombardo here in chambers. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Lombardo was not raising his hand. And then Councilwoman Holland online.
Okay. Because I don't know the order, I'll go with Councilman Malik first and then Councilman Holland, if that's okay.
Thank you, Just briefly, Mr. Angeloni, is there a term to the contract?
On these particular agreements, Councilman, I would have to go back and take a look. I imagine that there is indeed some sort of sunset provision, but in a typical attorney-client relationship, engagement letters are kind of open-ended
Sure.
on purpose. But we have been, as a matter of procedure and practice, entering into professional service contracts are some of our standard forms and incorporating those engagement terms into those contracts. So typically there would be a term, but as I sit here, I could not tell you what they are on these, but they certainly would not be something like a decade-long contract. That would not be something that we would do.
Sure, and just parenthetically to Councilwoman Amobian's point, I definitely take the point that there needs to be a significant discretion that the city law director has in selecting attorneys that would best represent the city's interests in some of these complex matters, and appreciate that this is being brought to council and that we're all having a professional discussion of a professional services contract. So thank you.
Councilwoman Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Angeloni. And I think I just want to make sure that I understood that the bulk of this particular contract has to do with ongoing legal matters, which involve these specialty areas of labor and employment and employee benefits. Did I get that right?
That is correct, yes.
And so it would be impractical and unwieldy to switch out counsel in the middle of a pending legal matter, would it not?
As I sit here today, I do not think that that would be in the best interest of the city, no.
I would tend to agree. Similarly, it's necessary even in a hardworking, versatile law firm like our city law department to go outside to get particular specialized representation in certain kinds of matters, correct?
Absolutely. Sometimes we do our best, but we should not dabble in areas with which we are not experts.
Well, as an employment lawyer for many, many years, I would agree with your assessment there. Thank you.
Are there other council persons with questions, comments?
Madam Chair,
Again.
Councilman Neal has his hand raised.
Sure, Mr. Neal.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me for the background. I'm not able to take it off, but I just want to speak to Ms. Amobian's point, and Ms. Holland touched on it, but this has been a long-standing concern here on council. From everything from opening up, holes in our streets for the breaks that we know that are going to happen every time, is creating opportunities for other businesses to do business with the city, be it in construction, with bonding, or within the law department. So what I'd like for us to see, when we talk about addressing traditional practices, and when we talk about making the changes that need to be changed, if we can even have some form of open house training for companies that want to be able, law firms that want to be able to get in and do business with the city. I know for a fact that there was a company that did bonding for the city of Philadelphia, so they were more than capable, but they could just never get in to do business with the city. And we hear this all the time with construction. So if we could just make note to create opportunities for folks to learn how to, if it write these special legal documents, or if it's something that we hear more frequently, doing business with in the realm of the construction. If we can create opportunities, almost like not a job fair, but a training fair, where these folks can learn and make it a part of our requirement that, especially these that have been doing business with the city long standing without competition, where they bring in a disadvantaged firms, so that we can start making sure that some of this opportunity is equitably distributed. Because it's never going to change if we don't put those metrics in place. So, just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Are there others, Madam Clerk?
I don't see any other hands raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And I appreciate everything that's been said, but I certainly believe that as we move forward, we have to do, I think, some new thinking around how do we continue the work that needs to be done, at the same time open the door for other businesses to take advantage of work for the city, with the city. So thank you very much for that. May I have a motion with suspension of the rules, please?
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? The motion carries, and I believe that's the last piece of legislation. Is that correct, Mrs.?
That is correct.
Okay. And if nothing else coming before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
That is our final committee meeting of the day. Thank you, everyone, for your patience as we work through this new technology. We'll be back at 7 o'clock for the city council meeting with hopefully improved audio. Thank you.